ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome to DurianASEAN.com. You're listening to the voice of discovering and sharing. And this is Gowri. I'm joining you today for our Monday morning ASEAN Daily, which takes place every day, of course, from Monday to Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning, where we bring you all the latest news from not only our nation, but all over Southeast Asia. And the time now is 8 o'clock, and let's get started with our ASEAN Daily for today. Hope everyone is having a good day. And we'll start with floods hitting several areas in Sarawak, as reported by the Sun Daily. And it seems several areas, including Kuching, Kota Samarahan, Muka, and Limbang, have been hit by floods following non-stop rain in the last 2 days. And when they contacted the Deputy Secretary of the Sarawak National Security Council, the Deputy Secretary said that 26 families have been moved to 3 flood evacuation centers. And he also said that 63 people from 29 families from around Balingian and Jinjap had been moved to evacuation centers in Sekolah Kebangsaan Kuala Balingian. And in Kuching, it seems some of the areas flooded. It went up to about 1 meter since early in the morning. And the Sarawak Civil Defense Department director said their staff had been placed in various locations since yesterday. They have been trying to set up relief centers, trying to get people to go over and help all the victims, provide medical aid, provide helping them in terms of getting around, moving from their homes to the to the evacuation center itself. And the Padawan District Senior Administrative Officer also said that about 130 people from about 30 families were moved to the flood evacuation centers. Well, back in Kuala Lumpur, though, the Women, Family and Community Development Minister, who is Dato Seri Rohani Karim, said she has actually given a briefing to all the women leaders in Sarawak that the flood could hit them soon enough, and she also told them how to go about to deal with the situation. It seems that the high tide was expected to start from January 19, which is today, and there are fears that the phenomenon might actually start earlier and cause floods. So it turns out that she was right. The floods did start a couple of days earlier, but she has given them the necessary briefing and the tips to foresee and to also anticipate the situation and be prepared for it. In Perak, it seems the National Security Council said the number of flood victims dropped to about 158 people from 50 families. And in Kelantan as well, as of 4 p.m. yesterday, it seems 472 victims from 103 families were still at evacuation centers in Kuala Krai. And in Machang, about 30 people from 8 families are still staying at the Sekolah Kebangsaan Temangan evacuation center. And it seems that the number of flood victims are still pretty high, and a lot of them are still stuck in evacuation centers, which brings me to my next news, which is about the mental scars that remain in these people, because after the floods, even during the floods, a lot of people went over to help. A lot of volunteers went over, especially to Pahang, to offer their aid, to bring them food, to bring them medical supplies, household items, and even personal hygiene products, toiletries that they need. And of course, all this help is amazing. It's very helpful for them. But at the same time, we fail to see the psychological aspect of the floods that hit the victims, because it's very hard for them to start over once they've lost everything, all their valuables, all their important documents, even their home is sorely destroyed. There are even pictures of one home being washed up on another home that it looks like a double-story house, and it can cause, first of all, major mental distress for these people, and in addition to that, they actually have to start their lives all over again, pretty much from scratch. And it's also said that when confronted with physical or emotional pain, of course, we have the tendency of either confronting that pain or running away. And in this case, the victims, of course, don't have a choice. They have to endure all the difficulties that come with starting their lives over. It can be really rough for them to when they've already suffered from the floods, and now they have to build their lives again, and especially when they have kids who need to go to school and school is delayed as well, and they still have no access to electricity. They cannot charge their phones. They cannot update their family members or friends about their whereabouts. And it seems that even until now, the water is still, it hasn't completely subsided. It's still pretty high, up to their waist at some places, and they have no help in that sense. Of course, they have all the material things with them, but they also need help to actually put everything together and to build their lives again. And the floods have also claimed the lives of at least 21 people, and of course we saw an evacuation of nearly 200,000 people, and it's one of the worst number recorded in the history of Malaysia. But he also added that Malaysians have developed a very laid-back attitude to national disasters. This is said by the consultant psychiatrist Dr. Andrew Monraj, and he said that depression or emotional challenges that go through these victims definitely needs to be addressed, or they will take an even longer time to overcome all these different emotional turmoils that they are facing. And speaking of emotional turmoil, we are heading to AirAsia QZ 8501, where they have identified the remains of 5 more victims. And the remains were already handed over to their families on Sunday, according to AirAsia in a statement. And the victims, passengers, were mostly Indonesians, and the disaster victim identification team at the Indonesian Republic Police Department had identified 45 of 51 remains, and they are still looking to identify the rest of the bodies. And in another development, the Indonesia National Search and Rescue Team said the mission to find the plane's main fuselage had ceased temporarily because of the thunderstorms and the huge waves in the search area. And of course, we all know that flight QZ 8501 under AirAsia vanished from the radar screens last year in December 28. With about 162 people on board from Surabaya to Singapore. And the AirAsia site is working very hard to retrieve the bodies, and also to identify the bodies and to get them back to their families as soon as possible, and not keep them waiting for so long, because the family members are of course dying to know what happened with their loved ones on the plane. And another story that we should not forget and should never forget is the MH370, which went missing way earlier on March 8 while it was en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. And it seems 10 months on, and the person who has come up to say that they are confident in finding the plane is surprisingly Australia. Well, this should actually come from us, from Malaysia, from our government, but it's interesting that Australia has stepped up to say that it's pretty confident that they will find MH370. And if it lies in the undersea of the zone that's being scored now, of course, and it's probably in a good condition. That's the Australian search chief is of the opinion that the plane wreckage might still be in good condition despite being submerged for at least 10 months. And the relatives, of course, have been waiting for a very, very long time. A lot of Malaysians, some of us have forgotten about it and moved on, and some of them, of course, those who have somebody on the plane, it is very difficult for them to not think about MH370. And despite having two other planes that went missing or that crashed, of course, MH370 remains the biggest tragedy for us, because until today we have not been successful in actually finding any leads. Of course, our Prime Minister came up with the conclusion after consulting with several experts that the plane has landed in the Indian Ocean. But even then, we still don't have any concrete proof, anything to pacify the family members and to make sure that they find their peace and they know what happened to their loved ones exactly. So this is something that we should keep pressing on, something that we should keep pushing the government for answers, because we all want to know what happened with MH370, not just people with family members on board or friends on board. And hopefully Australia will also step in and work together with the Malaysian government to find out what really happened. And we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with our ASEAN Daily for the Monday morning.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're with Gowri, and today is a Monday morning, and I'm bringing to you the ASEAN Daily, where we bring you news from all over Southeast Asia every morning from Monday to Friday. And moving on to Indonesia right now, they have, of course, caused a storm, a diplomatic storm, and also an outrage from a lot of different parties after they executed 6 people, including 5 foreigners. And this is because of convicted drug offenses on Sunday, unleashing a diplomatic storm as Brazil and Netherlands have stepped up to condemn the execution of their citizens. So what happened was that this five foreigners and 1 local woman were actually caught with drugs in their possession, and therefore they have been sentenced to death. And of course, it was the sentence was executed as well. And this has drawn an outrage from the Netherlands and also from Brazil, where these 2 countries have actually stepped up to condemn President Jokowi, who was quite popular before this incident. And they said that the Dutch Foreign Minister Bert Koenders said the Netherlands had temporarily recalled its ambassador to Indonesia over the execution of a Dutchman, Ang Kiem Soy, and described all 6 deaths as terribly sad in a statement. And of course he says that my heart goes out to their families, and that Netherlands remains opposed to the death penalty. And all the prisoners who had been sentenced to death between 2000 and 2011 were executed around the same time, shortly after midnight. And this also includes 1 Indonesian woman, who is Rani Andriani, along with 53-year-old Brazilian and a 62-year-old Dutchman. And others were Nigerian and also 1 citizen from Malawi. And they were sentenced to death for operating a huge factory producing ecstasy. And their last chance to avoid the firing squad was rejected last month. So there were no executions for Indonesia last year, and Jokowi, as much as he is popular among the people and among other countries, to actually be the one to make a change, to bring new hope and new light to Indonesia, it seems this his move this time is not too popular, especially with the Western countries, with the European countries who strongly oppose the death penalty. And of course, this news is more than just about the drugs offenses, or more than just about citizens getting executed. It comes down to the issue of human rights, and also the issue of death penalty, which has been abolished in a lot of countries, but over here in Southeast Asia, including Malaysia, a lot of countries, we still do practice the death penalty, especially for a drug-related offense. And this has been highlighted a lot of times by different media and also different human rights activists who have come over to Southeast Asia and said that that we should do away with the death penalty because it violates the human rights in the most extreme way, and we don't let humans take the lives of other humans, no matter how grave the offenses are. And this new administration has actually taken office on the back of promises to make human rights a priority, which is true that Jokowi came up to say he will be a people-oriented person, a people-oriented government, and for him to actually execute 6 people means that he's not exactly putting human rights on top of his list. And that is another issue that we are facing as a region, not just Indonesia by itself. And before the execution, the EU foreign policy chief had also sought to ramp up pressure on Jakarta, claiming the death penalty as cruel and inhumane punishment, which fails to act as a deterrent and represents an unacceptable denial of human dignity and integrity. And I think he hit the nail on its head here, because death penalty is of course a deterrent and is meant to instill fear in people and to scare them, and it's more of a preventive measure, but it doesn't really address the problem from the root cause of the whole problem. Instead of calling these people in, sending them for rehab, finding out what really happened or the cause of the problem in the first place, they are just executed and also given a shooting order to these people, which is not fair on their side, because at the end of the day they are humans and we want to respect the lives of other humans no matter what the offense is. And moving on to Singapore now, how prepared are they for terrorism? And also to comment on this news, I have Grace, who has joined me. Hello, good morning. And so we are moving on to Singapore. It seems that they have a few masked gunmen. Oh no, that was in Paris. A few masked gunmen on the run in Paris last week. Of course, it also happened with a local satirical newspaper, a Jewish grocery store, and a petrol station. And because of all this, it has sort of created a fear in our region itself. And we want to see how prepared is Singapore and also other countries in the region as to how will we address something like this if it ever happens to us.
But then a lot of things, this kind of event, especially regarding also Islamic attack, has been happening around the European region. Now it comes back to a question to ASEAN region, and then one of them is Singapore. And then with the low-cost, high-impact style of attacks by all these individuals or small groups in this sort of norm in terrorist attacks, Singaporeans and also the governments are trying to adapt. And then also cafes and shops have been putting in place ungraded surveillance system. And while security industry players expect counter-terrorism training to be soon to be made to core certification for the thousands of security guards at the condominium and the offices. So they are basically strengthening all this security system, as well as to be able to prevent from the upcoming all those events that can happen to the nation.
And it seems that over the past 6 years as well, they have soft targets ranging from Biopolis to Sentosa. It has been sites for several bomb detonations and shooting rampages as part of their annual exercise Heartbeat, designed to stress test how authorities and their private sector partners respond to such an attack. That's very interesting that they actually have mock attacks to see how they will actually react to it, because we tend to be very complacent and very laid back about the fact that no, things like this will not happen to us, and we'll see when it happens, like we'll worry about it later, there's no need to worry about it now. But the Foreign and Law Minister said that you have to have a balance between a free society and security. of course, you cannot turn every place into a prison or a fortress, but at the same time, you want to be really careful and on your guard at all times. Especially, we tend to think that we are free from all terrorist attacks and extremism, but then again, we have to remember that a number of Southeast Asians have actually joined in the ISIS force, and they're also slowly making their way here. And that is something that we need to address as well, if not prepare for.
And that this is very interesting. Whenever there's a huge event that happens, especially European region, the oldest government comes with the saying that it's a free society. However, I believe there's nothing wrong with the preparation to be able to be ready for what will be happening in the future, because we cannot guarantee that will not happen to us. And I believe Singaporean government is doing the right thing to the people, and also it's not only regarding all those terrorist attack. It's also they've have been practicing for all these natural disasters as well. So it is a well prepared system, and then to be able to bring the awareness among the society and what they need to do if that happens. So it's a good practice. It's just that psychologically they have to make sure that people are not paranoid, and also have all those stereotyping mindset towards the certain groups, especially Islamic community.
And are their strategies enough? We're about to find out. It seems Singapore is lucky that it has no homegrown terrorists, and it has a very strategic island geography that they have. First of all, it's very small. It's a very, very small country, which makes it a lot easier to monitor or to guard, unlike Indonesia or Philippines, which is huge and they have hundreds of islands scattered across, and it's a lot harder to look after a location like that. And they also have strict border control, and it controls very strictly actually the flow of both radicalized individuals and other items like fertilizers, which can contain bomb-making material, ammonium nitrate. And this is one of the strategy that Singapore is trying to implement. And apart from that, of course, like I mentioned earlier, the social media networks have effectively spread the ideology of ISIS, which is the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, to all corners of the world, and we are no exception here in Malaysia, in Singapore. And the Singaporean government also confirmed that a few Singaporeans did actually travel to Syria to take part in what's happening there, and some Malaysians and Indonesians have also done the same. Of course, access to firearms and explosive material is also something that is strictly controlled in Singapore. But the experts are also saying that this traditional policing methods may not be that effective. Of course, you can guard the borders and all, but the thing is, that's not how the ideas are coming in. The ideas are coming in through Facebook, Twitter, or other social media networks, or through your phone. So how are they going to address this kind of problems that comes through technology?
To be honest, with all this technology advancement, it's really hard to detect who's who, and then how are they going to attack, and we can't even predict when it will be the next attack to certain nations. However, at least Singapore hasn't taken a step towards to bring the awareness among the people to be able to be ready for the next attack. However, yes, you're right. Where here with all those social media, things can go unexpectedly, and then people can't predict what will happen. Meaning that all this, the group of ISIS people or the other community can actually convince you via so many ways, and then there are so many people who already have been convinced by this community, and they travel to Syria or other Middle East country to train themselves to be one of them, and it's very scary, and it's already become some kind of a practice in the certain regions. So it is something that we really need to look at. But like I mentioned before, there's actually nothing wrong with all these practices going on in Singapore, and also perhaps all this Southeast Asia need to perhaps learn that, and then also take this one as an example to make a step forward.
And when interviewed, the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong also said, "Can I say that these terrorist attacks will never happen in Singapore?" he cannot say. What he can say is that he will try his best to prepare his people psychologically, so that if it happens, we're not completely shocked and stunned, and that we can still maintain the ties between the communities while keeping their multiracial fabric, and also to make sure that the people will remain calm and learn how to handle the situation properly. So we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we will resume with our ASEAN Daily.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to JoranASEAN.com. This is Gowri.
And this is Grace.
And you're listening to our ASEAN Daily, which takes place every morning, where we bring you all the latest news from Southeast Asia. And let's go to Japan for a bit. It seems Japan is seeking closer maritime defense ties with India.
Yep, and then India, Japan, a foreign minister used to visit India last week to push for the tighter maritime security ties between two nations. It seems like Japan is really focusing on the maritime security, not only with India, but then we reported last week about the relationship between Japan and China as well. And this time it was the relationship between these two countries, Japan and India, to encounter the increasingly powerful China. So Fumio Kishida, who met with the Indian Prime Minister Modi on Friday last week, it was his actually first overseas visit since the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe secured the landmark victory in the national election last month.
And it seems Japan and India have actually been trying to work together, trying to increase their cooperation, especially when it comes to maritime security in the region, because like you mentioned, Fumio Kishida actually said that it is very important for them to further strengthen their cooperation. And we also reported that Japan has been increasing its military budget.
And then they have a lot of huge budget for this particular security. And then now, like we mentioned before, both India and Japan has signaled the keenness to beef up their defense ties in recent months to counter the increasingly assertive China.
So it seems that China growing is actually intimidating other countries in the region, especially Japan, and they are one of the first to react to this and say that, okay, let's be friends and let's not fight. And I know you guys are really strong, and it seems that their 8th dialogue on Saturday is also been confirmed with India's foreign ministry, where they're actually going to come together, not just discuss about maritime issues or bilateral relationship, but also about a possible economic collaboration with India, where this subject to both sides of the party have been compared for their economic reform zeal, as in their passion for economic reforms in both countries, in Japan as well as in India.
This shows a very interesting perspective when it comes to the relationship between Japan and India, and how they want to collaborate economically together to be able to grow economically together as well, because it's kind of rare to see between the relationship between Japan and India before, but after the Prime Minister of India, the Modi has opened up the platforms for other countries to come in and for foreign investors to come in to collaborate with each other. Japan also is one of the countries who has stepped in to India to look at and also to collaborate together. And also under Abenomics, the government of Japan supports the overseas advance of Japanese enterprises, while India has been strengthening its manufacturing industries by attracting investment under Modinomics.
So it's very interesting. We have Abenomics and we have Modinomics. So like you mentioned, Abenomics is more on supporting overseas advancement by Japanese enterprises, whereas Modinomics is more about manufacturing industry and attracting investments into the country. So Modi, who actually chose Tokyo for his first bilateral visit outside of Southeast Asia, it's also a good sign. It shows that he wants to work together with Japan to also go for his economic reform and also go for private investment that can go up to 35 billion over the next 5 years by his Japanese counterpart. And another thing that they will be discussing as well is about nuclear energy.
Yes, and then there is some because the reason Japan wants to strengthen its maritime security is also because of North Korea, because it's they're really situated quite nearby North Korea, and whenever North Korea has a nuclear test, it has affected directly the nation Japan itself. So when Japan wanted to put a huge budget for security and especially maritime security, that also taken into consideration of North Korean's nuclear test. So it is actually a good news, and also hope to see more progress between two nations to strengthen not only the maritime security but also to be able to develop nuclear energy as well.
So before we wrap things up for this morning, let's go to Vietnam for a bit, where we look at what awaits Vietnam in 2015. Will they actually be able to leverage their relations with TPP countries and also its advantage with China? So according to Vietnam's diplomacy in 2014, it was definitely a complicated mess, especially due to its tension with the South China Sea. They had a little issue between those two countries. They tried to have a dialogue to resolve the issues. But other than that, they're also pursuing other countries to have a good relationship with, like Japan, Philippines, and also the United States. And with China actually coming in and trying to claim sovereignty over most of the South China Sea, and also United States coming in here and protecting certain countries and also bringing in their own economic bloc to the region. It's bound to open up a lot of opportunities and also challenges, not only to Vietnam but most of us in this region.
Mm-hmm. And also the United States will strengthen its partnership with Vietnam, and then also it's also because of this common interest, which is also from China, and definitely this year, Vietnam and the United States will enter the final phases of negotiation for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which we have discussed, which is TPP, and also the economic treaty that will boost Vietnamese economic growth and independence.
And apart from that, it seems Vietnam has successfully diversified their relationship with a lot of countries. And one of the countries that they are quite close with is, of course, the United States. And they have actually been conducting joint military exercises, helping the U.S. to gain access to some strategic naval bases in the region, and as well as the victory of Shinzo in Japan and the renewal of the EDCA in United States and Philippines. It seems the United States is also strengthening their foundation in the region, in ASEAN itself, with the Philippines, with Vietnam, and they are also coming up with the TPP, which is it seems they are really interested to come in here and to make things work.
Yep, and definitely, like I mentioned before, 2015 will be a year for Vietnam as well to be able to execute the plan of TPP. But here, the interesting is what Vietnam itself, the nation, has a very unique feature of the Vietnamese geopolitics. It does actually geopolitics does the nation both harm and good. It has a closer ties with Japan, the Philippines, and also United States. They're pretty vital, and also degree of suspicion of China has proven necessary, although Vietnam has hardly dropped the ties with China recently. So Hanoi, which is the city in Vietnam, will need to continue its multi-vector diplomacy this year if it is to secure the sovereignty and also preserve the peace and security.
And according to Kang Vu, who is an international relations analyst from New London, he said that like you mentioned, also geopolitics is both good and harmful for the nation. But at the same time, it's very important for the country to foster its relationship with other countries, especially when it comes to superpowers. And in this case, it's of course United States and China. And it seems Vietnam so far is having a good balance there. It has a good relationship with the United States, and it does have some conflict with China, but it's also having dialogues and slowly working things out. So we'll have to see how that one goes, and we will of course report any updates about this. So that will be all for our ASEAN Daily this morning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, give us your comments, your feedbacks, and we also have Instagram as well as a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to.
And we have a website which is www.3ASEAN.com. So we have all our contents there, so do have a listen, and then please leave us the feedback, and feedbacks are always welcome.